Hello friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and I'm going to let today's video mark the official beginning of the 2025 growing and preserving season here at our homestead. So I thought it would be fun. I've had this requested many times that I do an assessment of the pantry and show you where we're at the beginning of the growing season. And then at the end of the video, I'm just going to take you through the garden to show you what we have planted so far and what we still kind of need to do. But we have just been enjoying this beautiful weather. It is really starting to feel like summer, and it is so exciting that we're going to be filling the pantry with a ton of delicious food here just in a few months. But for now, let's take a look at what we still have from last year.
So last fall, I took you on a tour of the pantry at the end of the growing season to show you all of the wonderful food that we were able to preserve to get us through the winter months where we eat off of the pantry and typically only the pantry. And I've never done a video, and it's been requested many times that I do an assessment or kind of show the pantry at the beginning of the growing season. So that's what I thought I would bring you in this video. So I'm going to put a link to last fall's pantry tour so you can see where we started. And this is where we're at in the middle of May, at the very beginning of the growing season. We have harvested a few things over the last, I guess maybe 3 weeks. We've had asparagus and radishes. Tonight I'm getting ready to pick our first salad, our first lettuces of the year, because we have enough of that now for fresh salads. So it'll be a little while before we're harvesting enough to actually preserve. That's usually the summer garden, not my spring garden. But I thought now was a good time to show you where we're beginning, because pretty soon we're going to start refilling things. So I'm going to get away from the entrance of the cellar and all of the sounds from outside and take you through. I'm going to kind of clean up and then show you after I clean up the area what we have going on down here.
So it's kind of a mess down here. I need to get the shop vac down here and clean all the cobwebs and things. But for now, I'm just trying to organize things by type of food so that I can truly assess what I need to preserve this year and how we're looking. And then for this video, I'm just going to kind of take you through and show you what we preserved enough of last year, what we didn't preserve enough of, and what the plan is for this year's growing and preserving season. And then you can see those results in the pantry tour this fall.
Shelf right here is all of our tomato products. We have some plain tomato sauce left. We have only 2 jars of tomato paste left. I have some chili base here, and then the rest of this over here is sloppy Joe mix, and then I have a little bit of pizza sauce that I recently canned in a video for you from some bags of frozen tomatoes that I wanted to use up. So this is all of the tomato products that we have to get us through until we'll begin preserving tomatoes again, which typically isn't until August. So I will ration these out, but thankfully there is enough here that it will get us through until August. We just won't be eating chili twice a week like we did through the winter. With what's left here, we can do it, have chili once a week, have some spaghetti once a week, make a few pizzas, things like that. So I'm feeling good about tomato products. So as you can see, when we go to preserve food, we're not just preserving enough to get us through the winter, we're preserving it to get us through the whole year until we're able to preserve those items again. So let's see what else we have left. I'm just going to count and kind of tell you to show you for our family of 11. I feel like this is enough combined with what we now have fresh from the garden to get us through until harvest season. This usually late July, August is when that will begin. Okay, so I have 14 quarts of pie filling left, and typically when we make pies for our family, we will use 3 jars of pie filling at a time. So that means I have 4 more occasions where I can make pie fillings the convenience way with what we have canned. Otherwise, pretty soon we'll have strawberries that are fresh, we'll have blueberries that are fresh, and we'll just have to make our pie filling the old-fashioned way. But out of everything, we had a ton of pie filling. If you guys remember in the pantry video that I did last fall, we only have those 14 jars left to get us through until fruit preserving season. Now this whole shelf up here was all meals in jars. You guys will remember that was my emphasis last year, was just getting as many convenient meals in jars as possible. And it was such a blessing to me through the busy postpartum season, having a newborn, when I just didn't have the time or the energy to cook a home cooked meal. Having the meals in the jars means it was already cooked from homegrown ingredients. But all I have left up here, let me turn this to show you. I don't know if you can see. In this row right here, I have 4 ham soup starters. So for like split pea, I could use one of those starters. 2 chicken corn chowders left. I have 3 white chicken chili starters. And I have 4 quarts of Mexican pinto beans that I can use for a meal. So that's not a lot. So this next shelf down here, these are all of my jams and jellies, and we still have a ton left. Most of the favorites are gone. All of the grape jelly is gone. Strawberry jam, peach jam, cherry jam, all the things, the cherry jelly. Those are the things that tend to go first. The things that are left are things that we will still enjoy, but it's things like tomato jam, hot pepper jelly, dandelion jelly. We have a lot of apple butter left, cranberry preserves and things like that, that they're still tasty, but it isn't the thing. Like if I sent kids down here and say, we need a jar of jelly for this homemade bread that I made for a meal, I'll just send them down here, and they tend to default to their favorites, and this is what's left. So I am probably good on apple butter for the year. Honestly, I don't think I need to can any this fall, and probably won't, based on what we have here. So I'm feeling really good about that. This year I will probably only preserve peach jam, cherry jam, we'll do some blueberry jam, blackberry jam, trying to think, strawberry jam, of course, that's coming up here soon, and then jellies that we're able to make. Otherwise, I think we're good on the preserves shelf. Down here are all of our pickled items, and we have so many pickled garlic scapes left. We also, I don't know if you'll see it hanging back there, have many bags. 3 bags of garlic still left, and it's all starting to sprout, so I'm going to get that chopped up and in the freeze dryer to make garlic powder. But I just realized I've preserved way too much garlic over the last couple years, so I'm very happy that I made the decision last fall to plant less garlic, because I'm just realizing we don't need it. I have pickled garlic down here. Let me see how many jars. 5 jars of pickled garlic down here, and 9 jars of pickled garlic scapes. And on top of that, pretty soon we're going to have fresh garlic scapes from the garden. So we are set on garlic, and I definitely in future years do not need to preserve that much, which is a blessing. So the great thing is I'll get all this dried, we'll be stocked up on our garlic powder, and we're good to go. You can see we only have 1 bag of onions left from last year, and these are still good. They have not sprouted yet. The temperature down here was just wonderful and lovely for preserving these onions this year. And so we will eat through these in probably the next week, and then we are done with onions, which is fine because we have green onions now available fresh in the garden. So our onion harvest made us through the year. That was wonderful, and it was about the perfect amount, which that's about the amount that I planted this year to get us through. We also still down here have onion broth left. 1, 2, maybe 5 quarts of, I call it French onion soup base, but it's technically just onions in a beef broth. And so there are a lot of times if I'm going to put like a roast in the crock pot, I won't cut up my fresh onions. I'll just pour that French onion soup base over the roast, and that's how it will get the onion flavor. So I'm very pleased with the results of our onion harvest last year and how that got us through the year. Okay, so down here we have some vegetables. We only have 6 quarts of potatoes left, but that is not enough. I did place an Azure standard order that I'll be picking up next week to get some fresh potatoes in the house to hopefully get us through the next couple of months before we harvest what I have out in the garden. So potatoes, I definitely didn't grow enough of. I never grow enough potatoes for our family because we don't have the space in our garden since I downsized it for this very busy season of life. So we do purchase a lot of our potatoes
But I haven't purchased potatoes since, when was it? I don't know, last fall, because I was just using what we had in storage to get us through. So we have about 6 more to go, so it's perfect timing. We'll eat through some of these this week, and then we'll have fresh potatoes next week. Down here we have squash. We have a couple jars of beets. We have carrots. And all of this over here is fruit juice. You can see back there we have grape juice and cranberry juice left. So that is a blessing. We will be making lots of popsicles here in the coming weeks. In fact, the kids had popsicles today while they were playing outside. So we will whip through that juice here probably in the next couple months, making popsicles for my hungry crew. And then down on the bottom shelf that you can't see, we have tons of canned corn. I think I told you last year that I was decreasing every year the amount of corn that we preserve. It used to be one of my staples in the pantry, and I'm just finding as the kids get older and as time goes on, it's just, I don't necessarily want it to be a staple of our nutrition because corn really doesn't provide much. I'd rather save space on my shelves here for other vegetables. And so I just use this corn in some very specific recipes. And last year, once again, we barely went through what I had preserved. So I don't think I will preserve canned corn this year. I'll make some of my meals in jars up there that have corn in them. Like there's a Southwestern veggie soup that I make that I love to put corn in. That corn chowder had corn in it. There's some salsa recipes and things that might use some corn. But otherwise, we will blanch and freeze some corn on the cob. I might freeze dry some corn because I really like that for soups. But I'm not sure that I will waste canning jars and pantry space on canned corn anymore in the future. I only have 8 quarts of green beans left, and that's a good amount to get us through until we will be harvesting green beans this summer. I learned last year, are just starting to prefer frozen green beans. Those are what went first, obviously, because that's what I was trying to use up first. And I think as we were eating more frozen green beans last winter, the kids decided that they prefer that. I have one person in the family, my son Gabriel, prefers canned green beans to the frozen. So I'll probably always can some for him. And then when I preserve my green beans, I'll always preserve it, the amount, knowing that he won't be eating those. And I'll just pull up a jar of the canned green beans to warm up for him when we're making green beans for the family. But yeah, so I'm not sure that green beans are something that I'll can a lot of this year either. Just enough for Gabriel's needs. Otherwise, we will be blanching and freezing most of our green beans. That's about it. The whole top shelf up here is just vinegars, and we are set on vinegar. This is the time of the year that we have a lot because I tend to make it in the fall and over the winter, so the jars are just full of vinegar. We'll go through a lot of that here this summer as we hatch chicks and things like that, and make a lot of salads and salad dressings. Otherwise, this canning shelf over here, it's starting to look a little sparse, you can see, and a lot of this is canned beans and broth on the very bottom down there, you can see. We're good on beans and broth, and those are things, the reason why we have a lot of that is because those were replenished. Those are winter canning projects that I did. As jars had emptied, the produce that we were emptying out of it, I filled it with dried beans and broths and meats and things like that. So we're really good on that, and we'll eat through some of that this summer. Otherwise, these are all salsas. I see peach salsa, I see some chutneys, I see corn relish, barbecue sauce, taco sauce, just a little bit of those kinds of things left. Hot sauce. We have some syrups over here, like caramel syrup, strawberry syrup, apple syrup, a lot of those things. And a lot of those are novelty items that I tried out to can, and we enjoyed them, but they're not necessarily items that would be part of our normal meal rotation, so they tend to get forgotten. Those are the kinds of things I might come down one day when I haven't planned a meal and look around and be like, oh, I forgot I have caramel syrup. Why don't I make something with that for breakfast or whatever? So I need to, in the next month, really get intentional about incorporating these items into our meals to empty those jars so that we have them available. Let me show you how we're doing with the fruit. Okay, so this shelf is all of our pints of applesauce, and we still have quite a bit of that left. Our quarts are up here. I tend to grab quarts a lot of the time because it takes 3 or sometimes 4 quarts in order to feed everybody if we're having applesauce like with our lunch or something like that. And these are like single serve applesauces for kids that kind of come down here and just want to grab one for a snack. And so we did not do very well at encouraging kids to come down and snack on this. And the reason for that is over the last, I'd say 3 years, we've gotten much better at preserving raw apples. We found the varieties of apples that really seem to store best for us. And I have lots of videos on our apple storage from the last 3 years. Every year I tend to do a video on that topic. And for the last 2 or 3 years, we find that we still have fresh apples that aren't mealy and soft for snacking all the way up until February. And so the applesauce just really isn't getting eaten as much. I use applesauce in a couple of my baking recipes, and so I find I'm using them more for that than anything else. So I'm not sure that we will be canning any applesauce this year. I'm just going to focus more on preserving more of those raw apples and getting them in storage because that's what the children really love. When it comes to apples, I'll make some apple pie filling this year. I told you I'm good on apple butter, I'm good on applesauce, so we're really good there. Now, pears, we only have 4 quarts of pears left, and I did not preserve any pears last year, so these are from 2 years ago when I went kind of overboard on preserving pears. So I would like to preserve pears this summer, and so we will do some of that. Otherwise, this is where we're at with our fruit storage. I'm just finding, too, that we use a lot more frozen fruits like frozen blueberries, frozen blackberries, and strawberries. We tend to prefer those a lot of the times. And then for like fresh eating, we find that we're eating apples a lot more. So the canned fruit, I mean, I like to have canned pears mainly just to make pear cobbler and things. But when it comes to snacking, these things just aren't getting eaten anymore the way they did a few years ago. So, speaking of potatoes, we have this box of storage potatoes that are down here. It's just, if you guys remember when I stored our potatoes last fall that we were going to use for fresh eating, I put them in these bags, and I found that I had these russet potatoes that sprouted very soon after we put these down in storage. Despite it being dark down here and cool and everything, they sprouted very early compared to, I had some yellow potatoes that were down here that stayed wonderful for months. So I just left these down here, and we had volunteer potatoes come up in my potato patch. I had forgotten that last summer after I harvested our potatoes, I took some sprouted potatoes from the pantry and went ahead and planted them and had completely forgotten about them until they popped up in the garden this year. And I'm like, what a wonderful surprise. I forgot about this. We're going to have a potato harvest without me having to do any work. So I need to dig up a new potato patch to plant these. These, despite looking like this, I can cut away the bag that they're in, and these are still plantable, and we can get a harvest from these. I just need to get them in the ground here very shortly, probably in the next week. So I think this will be the priority this weekend. It's dusty down here. I need to shop vac and get this all cleaned out and clean some cobwebs and things that are starting to accumulate down here. But that's pretty much where we're at. Like I said, the freezers aren't worth me taking you through because they are completely depleted. Besides blueberries, we do still have some frozen apple cider left that I need to pull out for some special occasions here in the next couple months. But otherwise, the freezers just have meat. We harvested 2 beef heifers over the winter, so we still have lots of beef. We're getting pretty low on pork. We have barely any chicken left. But freezers are going to start filling back up here. That's the easiest method of preservation, so I'm going to be doing a lot of that this year. And I will take you along for that. So why don't we head out? I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going in the garden, and then I'll show you some garden progress.
In last week's video, I showed you the beautiful Mother's Day gift that the children helped put together, all of these wonderful planting boxes that we put around the house, and we had so much fun filling them with beautiful flowers. But we also decided to set the green stalk up here and put in things like herbs and flowers for cutting so that we can have easy, convenient bouquets in the kitchen throughout the summer. We also ended up planting some tomato plants, a lot of cherry tomato plants in the planters mixed in with the flowers by the house for really convenient snacks while we're running around outside. So I was able to get, last weekend was the end of the frost risk, so we were able to plan out our summer crops, and I got a lot of seeds sown in the garden, but we're not quite done yet. There's still some work to do. And to be honest, last year, at this time last year, I was having debilitating morning sickness that lasted through a lot of the growing season. And then I was very pregnant in the fall and did not put my garden to bed. So it was just a mess. So I'm really struggling to get it cleaned up. From last year's neglect. And I'm just having to, it's like my canning challenge that I do in August. Every bit counts. So I'm just taking it one bit at a time, one bed at a time. I'll get one cleared out as the baby goes to bed in the evening. I can run out to the garden and spend a good 45 minutes clearing a bed and getting it planted. And the goal is that hopefully within maybe by the end of May, the whole garden can be ready to go. So let's take a look at it. It's going to be weedy and not perfect, but that's okay. I'm just worried about growing food here. This first bed, we got cucumbers planted with some marigolds and some volunteer dill that I transplanted. Those are great companion plants for cucumbers. This is one of our beds of garlic. I did 3 beds total last fall, and it's looking lovely. Here we have a bed of Patterson onions. Those are the ones I showed you in the cellar that are still going strong. And then we have a bed here of red onions that we'll use for a lot of delicious recipes. And then this is that volunteer potato patch that is rather weedy because the potatoes were growing and I couldn't till it up. So we're going to have to do a lot of pulling of weeds by hand in here. Here we have our hot peppers, and at the end there's a bunch of perennial garlic that will produce scapes for us. And then I was able to get some okra here in this bed. I did 2 beds of okra for Adam. He absolutely loves it, so I always make sure to grow that for him. Here is a bed of romaine lettuce that I'm really excited about. It's looking lovely and might need some shade cloth here soon. And then this bed is our leaf lettuce that I'm using as baby greens right now to cut for our spring salads, and that is producing well for us. Here we have our radishes, and it's starting to get a little hot, so some of them are beginning to bolt, and so it's really important that I harvest these and use them up this week. They grew to a wonderful size, so I'm really excited. Those are German giant radishes. They always do well for us here. Here are my other 2 beds of garlic. I'm going to have to look at my planting video from last fall to remember which bed contains which variety of garlic. And then I have one more bed over here of Patterson onions. Those are the storage type that I had mentioned. And I need to get in here and do some weeding because we had a lot of rain that also grows weeds, not just plants. So here are my bell peppers, and you can see some kind of critter chewed some of them down, and I'm actually not upset about that. I tend to have better results when my plants are topped off, so sometimes the critters help me out with that. I'm going to go around and pinch the tops off of these plants. It just helps them bush out, and I find I have a later harvest, but a bigger harvest if I do that. So hopefully, now that these are pinched off, they won't be tempting to the bunny or whoever has gotten in here, and we'll have a great harvest this year. Next, we have my 2 beds of tomatoes. A lot of these are slicer tomatoes that I grow here with the trellises, but the majority of my tomatoes that I grow for canning, I put in pots around the perimeter of my garden. I think I planted about 60 tomato plants total, and it won't be enough for all of our eating and canning needs, but it will do a great portion of that. And then I have a wonderful local source for Roma tomatoes that I use for canning a lot of sauce, and it ends up being really cost effective if I purchase through them. So we did get 60 tomato plants in the garden, which I'm happy about. And then there are just tons of volunteer parsley, dill, cilantro that I'm really working on right now, putting in different areas of the garden and moving from the spots that they chose. So it's starting to come together. It's still a mess. I have a lot of weeding to do in my pathways, and we need to sweep up some of the mulch that kind of moved there over the fall and winter, but I think it'll come together and it'll be a productive garden before it's all said and done. I should mention that those are only half of the beds. The other half still needs cleaned up and planted, so we have a lot of work to do. On this side of the garden are the blackberries that are growing, and we're really excited about those. And I thought I'd take you through a little bit of the orchard. We've got mulberries, so many mulberries this year. We had new trees pop up everywhere over the last 3 years. This is our first year that we might get a few peaches from our young trees, but not a ton. The apples are looking lovely. Here are our Zestar apples. They're an early, a summer apple. And then we have our fall apples that are a little bit behind in growth that are still looking lovely on the trees. Our tiny baby cherry tree is putting on some fruit. We're excited about that. And then we have our little gooseberry bush that looks like it's going to fruit this year. So yeah, I still need to plant beans. I've got some squash to plant and some melons.
Okay, friends, that is it for this week. We'll be back next week with a meals video, a week of our meals that we're eating fresh from the garden and using up those goodies that we still have left in the pantry that I showed you. Until then, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and we will see you later. Bye.